Hi everyone and welcome to week 11 of Open Hardware Leaders. Today we will show you some basic tips for event organizing, aimed particularly at open hardware projects. So we're going to walk you through again the basic elements of event planning to understand how can events help you achieving your project goals, or how can events help you boost your project goals. We will also give you some tips, like very practical tips on how to organize events, because we usually don't have the budget to pay for a professional person who will organize this in a professional manner. So how can we do it ourselves with as little pain as possible? Just as content warning, events are incredibly varied. So these are general tips, but you can go deeper in the different kind of events and different kinds of resources that are available and are listed at the end of this presentation. And also to let you know, this presentation is mainly based in a workshop run at OpenSourceCon 2015 by Kara Souls and Francesca Crihali. So we will see some besides the tips, how to define our purpose, mission and goals for the event, how to identify the constraints we have, and therefore how to mix this to choose the best structure that will serve our needs. We will also see some information about the event content, which is the most important part. It is the face of our event. And some very practical information on logistics and activities you can do after the event to make sure you get most of the experience for you and your team. So, main idea here is that a simple, small event can change your community. You don't have to think of a huge budget of 1,000 people gathered in a conference room. Your hardware project may be small or medium-sized, but even when you have different goals in mind, an event can help you boost those goals. I know I'm presenting this information in the context of COVID-19, which changes absolutely everything about gathering people. But you will see, if you haven't seen up to now, that lots of people and lots of communities are starting to share tips, tools, and more than anything, how to get the most of virtual meetings, how to get the most out of people gathered around your project online. So events are still important, and although the format may change, and of course we will have to adapt to it, we can get the most out of it for our project's benefit and for building community. So 3 main ideas that will be all across this presentation. First, you have to define the purpose of the event very well, because it is what will determine everything you do. Second, you have to empathize with your attendees, because an event is made with you and your attendees, not only with the project. And third, you need to plan your logistics to achieve what you have defined. If not, it's useless. First tip, first departure point, I would say. You need one master document where you will be putting all the information related to the event organizing. It's not good to have all the information spread everywhere, even if you have a label in your inbox about the event. This is not useful. So the best thing to do is to have one shareable document, or I don't know, a board or something where you can, version control thing, where you can track what you have been doing or you have been discussing about the event. So basically, it's to keep yourself on track easily, to have one source of information, to easily be able to share the history of the planning with someone else. Just send a link to someone, and think of it as if you need a replacement, then someone can read the document and pick up where you left off. So I pasted there a link for a worksheet example of a tech event planning thing that you will be discussing in the assignments this week. It's really concrete. It's really goes to the point of all the bullets that you cannot miss when organizing an event. So talking about the purpose and the mission and the goals. First of all, you need to define the purpose of the event. And there are many different purposes and needs. For example, your event may be aimed to teach people something new. You may want to learn from others. You may want to meet your users in real life or gather feedback about your project. Encourage your beginners to learn or increase transparency, share knowledge, show users how to use properly the project to get the most out of it, to get the most out of your product, build something, or even fix something. So once you define your purpose, you need to think not only for you, what you want to get out of it, but also what you guess your attendees want to get out of it. And here, going back to our validation ideas and tests, it would be great if you could have some input previously from your community to understand what is missing and what they would value. So this purpose will be translated into a mission, which is a statement that you will publish on your event's website, and it will be the face of your event. The mission statement will quickly tell the public what to expect from your event. And then it will also translate into your goals, which are super specific and concrete objectives that you will evaluate after the event. So how to define the goals for your event? You have to think of attendees, basically. And if your attendees should walk away from your event with something they take from the event, then what should they do to get that? For example, I would like my attendees to walk away from this event knowing how to best apply my hardware to their science goals. Therefore, they will attend a workshop in which they propose some applications of my hardware, and we walk through it and we see, for example, how to troubleshoot if anything happens and things like that. So that in the box you can see an example that is more oriented to students. For example, my purpose is to teach local students about open hardware and get them interested in conservation ecology. Then my goal will be I will have 50 students in attendance, and at least half of them will complete the challenges I provide. So goals are super specific, super concrete, and they have numbers because we want to measure them. Next step is to identify the constraints, because we do not live in an ideal world and we have our limitations. So there you have the 4 most common limitations you will have in every project, which is you don't have unlimited money, so there is a budget limitation. You probably don't have unlimited space. Maybe you have, if you're lucky, but usually you can have access to a venue that has some limitations in how many people it can host. Planning time is a very important thing. It's not the same organizing an event in 6 months advance than in 2 months advance than in a month advance. Things are very different. And fourth is your event may be co-located, or you may be doing it on your own. So maybe if it's co-located, someone is lending you, let's say, the venue to do it, well, you will have some requirements to fulfill. If you're independent, then you don't have any requirements, but for example, you don't have the benefits of promotion that come with it. So these are constraints you need to think about and clearly write down. These constraints, combined with the goals and the purpose you have defined before, will give you the structure of your event. So you have to decide what type of event can meet your goals while working within your constraints. First of all, as we said previously, is that it's good to know what's missing in your community. So if you have some users, but there is no like a big sense of cohesion in the community, no networking, then maybe you may want to do more periodic events. If you don't have a consolidated community, if you don't have many users, you may want to do a one-time event to promote the use of your project and your product. So it depends, but basically you have 4 types of events that will be quite different. The less structured one is the type of networking events. So networking events are good if you have not a good idea of what you are going to expect from the attendance. They are quite informal, they have low structure, they're easy to do, the barrier to entry is lower. You have to be very clear about who you are inviting and you have to gather people with an idea in mind, because less structure doesn't mean no structure. So, for example, lightning talks, a kickoff speech, some topics to discuss, some icebreaker activities, something, okay? Networking events are just, again, like, let's see what is in this community and let's see what works, but you need some structure. User groups are another way to build community. These are more flexible. They are usually periodic events, and it's wonderful to build community locally. They are informal, they are flexible, but they demand a long-term dedication. So there is more information, as you see in the slides. If you want to go there, you will have all the tips for user groups. Online events are the star in COVID-19 era, and it's a great tool also for engaging people that usually cannot attend in-person events. So it will let you identify, for example, if there are some barriers that are specific to a certain group. So one very important thing here is to take into account the technology, to plan very well all the interactions of online gatherings that are quite different from in-person gatherings. There are full guides on this that people are putting together, and I linked there on the slide. We are also putting them together in the GitHub repo of Open Hardware Leaders. And then hackathons is another kind of event, another structure that is, it can be different according to what you choose. Some hackathons are collaborative. Some hackathons are more like a competition. We have seen those everywhere, okay? So there are very good opportunities for people to build prototypes, collaborate with others, but really if it's collaboration or competition will dictate almost everything. So are you defining the challenges? Are the attendants defining the challenges? Is there a prize? Is there not a prize? Is there a symbolic prize that it's not money or like a real super prize, but it's like more a symbolic thing? Do you form the teams? Are the teams gather and form in the moment? So there are lots of things to plan, but they are very useful for specific needs of collaboration or competition or for new ideas. Something very important you need to consider also is that if your event is happening periodically or if it's a one-time only event. So of course, periodic events demand a lot of work, but they are very good for building community in the long term. One-time events can be super good for very concrete goals, but again, once they are not happening, well, kind of the momentum gets lost. As I was saying in the beginning, the content of your event is what will attract people or not. So the content of your event can be collaborative. This is the case of hackathons, as we were mentioning before, and conference formats. There are, again, lots of resources on how to facilitate conference formats at the end of these slides. You can have speakers. Your speakers can be invited keynote speakers, or you can make a call for proposals in which people of the community propose topics to speak about, and there's a lot of work to do there in selection. You can propose, or the community can propose, workshops or activities that are very engaging in a different way and work especially well when we're talking about open hardware projects. So there are resources that I listed in the end of this presentation from Public Lab, which has a super effective barn raising methodology where people use open hardware to go and monitor their local environment during the event. So those kind of super creative methodologies really engage with people and are really useful, and maybe you can get inspired by them.